Well, good afternoon. How's everybody? Not bad for a Tuesday afternoon. That's lovely. That's lovely. My goodness, we have a whole lot of shy people. Turn your cameras on. Come on. My goodness. If I have to be on camera, so do you. Yeah, so my question for Andy is that a real cat? Oh, it just moved. It is a real cat. My goodness. That's an enormous cat, Andy. Enormous. All righty.
It's actually not that big. It's an optical illusion. But she eats enough to make you think she's enormous.
Well, there you go. It's interesting. Usually I'm able to guilt more people into turning their cameras on by saying what I said. That didn't work all that well this time. All right. Here's what I can say. You learn a whole lot more when your camera is on, which means you will likely make way more money in real estate if you're not camera shy. There we go. That changed some people's minds.
Good afternoon.
So welcome to Ignite. I'm really excited to be here with you. I'm sorry, we got a whole bunch more people kind of knocking on the door here, so I'm going to keep admitting them.
I am running home, but as soon as I get home, I'm going to connect my camera.
Aha, perfect. Thank you, Erica. So the idea of our time together, let me just kind of set the stage and then we'll kind of dive in. The idea of our time together is a couple-fold. The first is I want to make sure that you get the experience of the fact that I have spent 21 years making every single mistake that you can possibly make in real estate and still did pretty well. And so if I've spent 21 years making mistakes, the benefit, the bonus for each of you is you get the benefit of listening to those mistakes so that you don't have to make those mistakes and can just shortcut yourselves to pain-free prosperity. How's that sound? And so for those of you who have not ever met me in person or have not been on calls, my name is Rick Scott. I am the principal broker, the operating partner, and the director of education for the Keller Williams Realty offices in Ridgefield, Danbury, and now Newtown and soon to be Westport. So lots of exciting things going on with our growth, and we're so excited to have all of you as a part of it. I have to admit that this is probably one of my favorite things that I do for our market centers, which is meet with you guys 3 times a week for a couple of weeks and kind of run through business building from start to finish. And what I mean by business building from start to finish is that we are going to start today with more of a conceptual conversation that has to do with your head and making sure that your head is in the right spot. Does everyone agree that if your head's not in the right spot, it's really tough to actually create the results that you're looking to create, right? So we want to make sure that your head's in the right spot and that you understand exactly what this is and what this isn't, because those are 2 really important things to understand. There are a lot of, I think, myths around what being in real estate is. And there's a whole lot of inaccuracies around what being in real estate isn't. And so I want to be really clear with you today around where that success comes from, what activities success comes from. I would far rather spend time today telling you the truth about what it takes to succeed in our industry and have some of you kind of freak out and think, oh my goodness, you know what, maybe this is not for me. I don't think you will. And yet I'd rather run that risk and tell you the truth about what that looks like rather than fill your head with, sugar plums and fairy tales and lollipops and rainbows and whatnot, only to have you finish 4 weeks from now saying, okay, well, like nobody told me I had to do all of that. I thought my good looks and charming personality once I joined a brokerage would get me business and rocket me to the heights of success. That has not been my experience. Maybe it's the lack of charm and good looks, but it has not been my experience, right? My experience is that our industry, just like any other industry, is about practice and time on task over time, and more practice and skill development and putting ego aside so that you can learn, and then more practice. And then at the end of the day, the actual doing of the do, right? Because at some point you actually have to start doing the do. And so our time together will be spent. Today is probably the most theoretical day that we have together. What I would like to discuss with you today is my promise to, even for those of you who have taken this previously, and I know we have some repeat offenders on the call. We have people who have been through Ignite 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. We have Donna Gilbert, who I think is, are we in the hundreds yet, Donna? Is it triple digits, right? Donna's as close to a Ignite groupie as we have. So if you see her kind of with her lighter at some point doing one of these, that's there we go. And yet, you know, it's kind of important. Donna, would you mind unmuting just for a second and just telling us why, like, I don't call you ahead of time and say, hey, would you mind coming back at least for the first one so you can say what you say. When I send out an Ignite invitation, Donna is sometimes the first, usually within the first 5 people to reply saying, count me in, I'll be there from day one. And so why? I mean, why do you keep coming back?
Yeah, that's simple. So especially in the last 8 months, we talk a lot about mastery. And Ignite is just fundamental skills and exercises that will create, build, make your business more consistent. And just hearing it over and over and over again, it becomes ingrained in you. And I will tell you, now literally we joke, but I was trying to figure it out. It's gotta be at least 15 or 20 times I've done this. And I come back because every time I'm a different person in my business and what I'm struggling with or what I'm having success with. And also it changes. I mean, a lot of it is fundamental, basic, the same thing over and over again. And yet there's a little different tweak, a different spin, depending on what the market is, that sort of thing. So I don't know why everybody doesn't take it over and over again.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think that so thank you so much for sharing that, because it's important, I think, as a message to say, you know, this is foundational work. Whether you like the work or don't like the work, the reality is it is foundational work inside of our industry, right? And so I think sometimes people go through Ignite and say, oh, all right, well, I got through those 4 weeks. Hope I never have to do that again. Now I can just run my business the way I want to run my business. And I think the concern that I would have around that thought is what we go through together, kind of step by step, is the way you run a successful real estate business. You can run a real estate business a whole lot of different ways. However, there are tried and true methods about how you run a successful real estate business. And that's what we will focus on is what are the things that work, that are proven to work, that if you do consistently, and consistently means kind of daily, over and over and over again, will bring you the success that you desire. You know, I oftentimes think to myself, I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet, and also maybe the other side of that. I can't think of even what the word is. I wake up every day and own an organization where every ounce of income that comes into this organization is developed and created by other people. I don't create an ounce of income for my own organization, except by helping you be successful. And so when I say that I wake up as like the luckiest man on the planet, is that it is truly, it is not lost on me that my role in all of this is to point you in a direction and then support that direction as much as I possibly can and create a structure inside of our organizations that support you and lift you and continue to guide you towards the promised land. Because without that, we'd have a whole lot of people on a Zoom call for 12 sessions who then didn't go out and sell any real estate, which doesn't create any income for any of us. So that's a kind of a long way for me to say to you that that my time with you is really an honor, and my time with you I take very seriously, and I honor you for being here. Your time is valuable to me, and I want to make sure that you get the most out of our time together. Not only because it creates the world that I want to live in, but because as partners, we get to kind of influence each other's worlds. And maybe that sounds a little corny, and yet you'll get used to it for those of you who are new to me. The reality is I believe that with every ounce of my being, that word that people throw around, partnership, that means something to me. And what I hope to be able to prove to you in the next 4 weeks is that a big part of what it means to me is making sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful. I know the last time we did an Ignite was a number of months ago. So I know a couple of you have been waiting probably 60 days or so for this class. So I expect that the wait will be worth it. I'm pulling for it. And with that, I think we should just get started, because I could wax poetic about partnership for most of our time today, but that wouldn't really push you in a direction of new success. So let's get started. And the first thing I want to do, I want to change things up a little bit for any repeat students this time. I want to dive into, first and foremost, where you go to find your materials. Because I always say at this moment in time, you're going to have your materials sent to you for this first day, which is true, right? All of you who are on our rosters right now should have received an email from Maria earlier this afternoon with your session 1 Ignite materials. If you did not, if you would do me a favor and just put your name and your email address in the chat box, Maria is here with us for a few minutes and she will send to you. So just your name and your best email address in the chat box, and Maria will get those materials out to you. Again, most of you, by looking through the faces in front of me, most of you should have already received those earlier today from Maria via email. However, from here on out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that you head on to my KW and into KW Connect and grab your own materials prior. So Maria sent them out today. She'll send them out during our time in the next 10 minutes or so if you ask her to. And then after that, we're going to leave that to you. So let's do this. I'm going to share my screen with you just for a moment. And I'm going to show you exactly where to go to grab those materials. Okay, so Jerome, just do me a favor and just nod your head if you can now see my little shining face in the upper left-hand corner. Okay, good. So this is the homepage for my KW, right? For everyone who is currently on our roster, you have a username and password that was given to you to access this site. It's mykw.kw.com. If you are not currently on our roster, if you're in the process of taking your test, or if you're a guest with us this afternoon, please just get back to the person who invited you perhaps your team leader, Steve Scott, Carlos Martinez, Dan Raposo, and just let them know that you will need materials every week. So we will have a short list of those of you who cannot access this currently, so we'll make sure that we email those to you. But for everybody else, when you come into your homepage on MyKW and in the upper left-hand corner, click Education, you'll be redirected to KW Connect. Most of the time, Ignite is right here on the front page. If it's not, for some reason, if you don't have that choice, up here in the upper right-hand corner, where you have the upload button, right next to that is a search button. You can just type in Ignite and click search, and it will bring you to the same place that this icon on the home page will bring you. And that page looks like this. And so you can see towards the bottom of this page, you have student resources, instructor resources, purchase materials. You don't have to purchase anything. So just come here to student resources. And when you click on student resources, here's what's fun. You get each of the power sessions. There are 12 of them. We will spend time in probably 60% of them. And then for some of them, we're going to go off book, and I'll give you some other materials that I think are more specific to what you need. And what you want in each of these power sessions is Power Session 1 Manual US. If you download the Canadian one, I can't answer any questions that you might have for the material that's in there. But the United States, I can handle. So Power Session 1 Manual US, and then Power Session 2 Manual US. So for tomorrow, you'll likely need Power Session 2 Manual US, right? And when you click on it, what you'll get is, you'll just get a PDF. And so you can either print that and go through paper, or you can just keep that on your screen, however you want, or on a different device, however you want to utilize the materials. Any questions about where you go for the stuff? Let me just get to the chat box because I see that people are posting. Okay, when I'm sharing my screen, I struggle with the chat box. So I'll get back to the chat in a second. Okay, after logging into the internet site, where do we go next? You go next to your face, above your face in the upper left-hand corner, and you will click on Education. Right, and Education will bring you to the homepage of KW Connect. Okay, so I'm seeing that just one person, just Andy needs the stuff. Everybody else has their materials. Okay, and so Maria, do me a favor, just in case somebody doesn't want to put their name and/or their email address in the chat. Guys, if for some reason you don't want to do that, you can private message in the chat Maria, her name is Maria Christensen, and/or Maria, do me a favor and put your email address and the office front desk phone number in the chat box. And if you guys want to just kind of message Maria privately or give her a quick call, she can send that to you if you don't want to put your email address in the chat. Perfect. All right, so that is where you find your materials. So again, you'll have your materials for today, but tomorrow you'll need Power Session 2. So go ahead and grab those on your own. So in order to get started, one of the things that I want to be certain that we do is cover one quickie. And that is an intro Here we go. An intro by Gary Keller. So Andy, do me a favor. Tell me if you see Gary's face on the screen. Just nod your head. Yes? Okay, good. All right, so this is just probably a 90-second video. Do me a favor. We will watch some videos, probably today, tomorrow, Thursday, this week. We will have a couple of video things to watch. When I'm playing the video, do me a favor and don't check out, actually lean in, right? Because the only reason I play them is because there's a lot of powerful information contained in these short little snippets. And I want to be certain that you're getting that information directly from somebody else's mouth sometimes. And in this case, Gary's mouth. So pay attention, take some good notes. We'll clear that when we come back, and I'll just ask you for the ahas that you heard, what surprised you, what excited you. So without further ado, the next few minutes with Mr. Gary Keller.
Hi, I'm Gary Keller. This course will allow you to get off to a fast start you can build on. Because if you repeated the principles every 90 days for a year, believe me, you have an awesome first year. And just as important, you would have built the foundation and momentum for your entire career. It is practical, realistic, and easy to apply. It's about the fundamentals that determine your level of success in the business of real estate. From our research with top agents, we have found that they too started their careers with these fundamentals, and they continue to do them along with their teams to this very day. And it's not hard. It just requires a little focused effort, a few hours every day. Now, there is really just one way to achieve the goal. It's lead generation. Now, other skills are important, yet without leads to work with, your skills won't mean a thing. Dealing with business never takes precedence over what? Finding business. Never. Research shows that top producing agents make lead generation their #1 priority and the one thing they make sure they always get done. You can do this. And when you do, you will get the leads, the relationships, the experiences, the career, and the income that you want and deserve. Go get them, and good luck.
All righty. Thank you so much, Gary. Always a pleasure to have you with us. He called in special just for you. I asked him yesterday if he had some time right around 4:22, and he said, you know what, I have about 2 minutes. So most of you thought that was recorded. That was actually Gary live, direct from Austin, Texas. And you will find when it suits my needs, I will lie right to your face. No, I'm kidding. Well, clearly I'm not kidding because I just did it. So to make sure that we're as engaged as we possibly can be, here's our next step. As I said, we're going to clear Gary's video, right? There were a lot of really cool nuggets in there. And so here's what I want you to do. We're going to get real clarity around how we're going to behave in this Zoom environment, right? Because I don't have you in a classroom. And so not having you in a classroom is different. And so we're going to make it as undifferent as we possibly can and keep you as engaged as we possibly can. So one quick rule. If you have a question, you can either raise your little blue digital hand, because I think that's there's a raise hand button someplace on your Zoom, and I will see that. Or if you have something to say or a question, just unmute, and I will see that you're unmuted and call on you. Just like when I ask questions, if there's a bunch of you who have answers, just unmute and I will call on you. That will stop me from talking over you and you guys from talking over each other. So unmute is the key for me to see that you have something to say, and I will absolutely call on you and give you the floor when you do that. Note that sometimes you might unmute and I might keep talking for a little bit. It's not that I didn't notice you. I just noticed that you were asking a question in the middle of a thought that I needed to finish. So I will finish that thought to get to the end of a concept and then call on you with questions. So that's kind of how we'll work some questions. To give you another idea of how we will work things, just in case you thought that it was easy to kind of put this on in the background and then go and like make dinner, I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more engaged than that, right? And so we have this fun thing called Breakout Rooms, which we're going to experiment with right now. For those of you who have never been in Breakout Rooms, oh my goodness, look at that. Literally some eye rolls from some people. It was spectacular. I loved it. And you all know who you are. I saw it. Because the fun thing one of the things I've gotten really good at in the last 10 months is I can literally watch 40 of you at the exact same time. Being a parent, I think, has something to do with that. But being like Zoom master for all this time since our initial lockdown definitely has honed my skills to make sure I can see what's going on in 40 different boxes all at once in our little Brady Bunch world that we're in, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take 3 minutes. 3 minutes. That's not a lot of minutes. So 3 minutes. So get into your breakout rooms and start having this discussion, because I'm going to pull you back and then ask you to clear. The discussion that you're having is, what did you hear Gary say? What were the important pieces of what he just talked about? What were your ahas? What did you underline in that? If you had the text in front of you, what would you have highlighted? And just talk with each other to make sure that you didn't miss anything. And then when you come back, I'll ask for some volunteers to just kind of share what you guys talked about. So without further ado, I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. Now, again, I'm going to keep the breakout rooms small so you have an opportunity to actually talk with each other, which means there'll just be 3 or 4 of you in the room. I'll see you in 3 minutes. Bye. Stephen.
I think Cindy Lee is one of our guests.
She went and do. I don't know. Looks like maybe she left. I don't see her. I'll watch for her. Maybe she'll pop back in.
All right, cool.
That is one thing that people use, is they leave and they come back after the breakout room. So, Stephen, I just wanted to not really remind you, because I kind of forgot myself. I'm the special guest on the Home Vision Group's investment Zoom tonight. So that's at 7 o'clock. So I'm gonna finish, run home, maybe eat something quick, and then come back and be that guest, because I'm being interviewed as the investor guest on their thing. So I'll be an hour, so 7 to 8, but I'm going to do it here because it's just easier and I have less distractions for that. Okay, I can't hear you if you're talking to me. Yeah, not hearing you.
Why?
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right, I got my new microphone.
Oh, good. All right, I got to pull them back.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, everyone will be back in 9 seconds. Here they come.
Bust us out of the group right now. Okay. See you guys.
All righty.
That was fun.
There we go. Everybody's back. Wasn't it fun? See that? And so one of the things that I want to make sure that we continue to do more and more of are things like that. Because guys, here's what I can tell you. 2 hours of just listening to me drone on and on and on, 3 days in a row, you'll want the break, right? So what I'm going to do is continue to work opportunities for us to push into those breakout rooms so that you have each other to utilize as resources, as brainstorming partners. Once we get into our buyer unit and our seller unit, which will be next week, I'll push you into some breakout rooms so you can do some rehearsals and just kind of run scripts back and forth one-on-one. So I want this to be as if we were actually in a classroom as often as we possibly can, right? There are certain things that we can't do because we're separated, and yet we're gonna do everything we can do to have your learning experience be as positive and as interactive as you possibly can. Trust me when I tell you, even if some of you are like, oh, please, I'm like an adult. I don't need to go and chat with other people. You'll get more out of our time together by leaning in and engaging in that. And it's fun, right? You just have to choose to make it that way. All right, so who wants to share with some thoughts? Who had some cool ahas from that video? Go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Rick. So first of all, it was great to connect, keeping the terminology, with new people. We're all for new. But from the video from Gary, we actually were reminded that if we apply what you will teach us and coach us on, for 90 days in a year, we're going to have a successful year. What I learned from Gary is that everything we're going to do in this class, in these sessions, is not waste of time, but it's practical. That's why you have these breakout rooms. It is realistic, so it's no chit chat just for the sake of chit chat. And it's achievable, easy to apply. So I call it achievable, right? The other thing that we learned is lead generation, top of mind, because lead generation grows your database. It makes you grow your network. Lead generation is important. Of course, lead conversion as well. But if you can achieve that, then it's going to generate more leads for your business. And if you have leads generation and lead conversion, that creates income for all of us. That's what we take from the video.
Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Love it. That was a pretty complete synopsis. You covered just about all those points. I love it. Anybody else want to add to that? Going once? Niels?
We discussed blocking time for lead generation. So it's very important to put some time to the side and dedicate yourself to lead generation. Yeah,
absolutely. And one of the things that we're going to cover Andy, did you have something?
No.
No. Okay. I'm gonna keep you muted if not. So to what both gentlemen just put on the table, I want to say kudos, because those are the things that are important to bring away from that video, right? It's simply about activities. It's about activities that you do consistently, that if you'll dedicate yourself to these activities for 90 days at a time. Notice I said 90 days at a time, not just 90 days and then you stop doing the activities. It's 90 days at a time. So you do them for 90 days, and then guess what? You just do them for another 90 days. And then when you get through 2 sets of 90 days, I know this is the advanced group because you can all see where I'm going. Yes, a third 90 days, and then a fourth 90 days. And then so 4 90-day periods of time is an entire year because these activities are what pushes your business forward. Getting control of your calendar is crazy important, right? Not everything that we do is as important as everything else, right? There are things that are more important. We're going to go through that shortly about what those important activities actually look like. We'll define them for you. It's, if you were on the 9 o'clock Zoom call this morning, which by the way, if you're not on our 9 o'clock Zoom calls, I encourage you to be on our 9 o'clock Zoom calls, right? There's usually a lot of really good information, great guests, and awesome stuff that are shared on those 9 o'clock Zoom calls. So if you haven't started to plug into those 9 a.m. Zoom calls, they happen Monday through Friday. We do not do them on Saturdays and Sundays, but Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. is a great way to kind of start your world, get yourself up and motivated and on the way. Anybody want to just give a quick plug for those 9 a.m.s? Anything that I'm missing?
You never know what you're going to get in a good way.
Yeah, indeed. And
I mean,
sometimes we don't even know what we're going to deliver to you.
well, you can be sure you'll probably get some Ellen.
Yes, that is true. Some Ellen or some Jimmy to start, right? A little laugh. Go ahead, Chelsea.
I feel like it's just such a great way to feel connected, and to really feel like we're part of something that's bigger than ourselves. I've had to actually miss the past 2 mornings, and I feel like my entire day is actually off just because I don't start it off that way.
Love it.
But yeah, we're independent out here, but we also are part of something bigger, and that helps remind us every day.
Yeah, indeed. Community is important, right? Community is important to a lot of things. And so the hope is that, we asked you guys after the lockdown portion of our last year was actually over. We came back to you and said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Should we keep going on the 9 a.m.s? And it was like almost unanimous. People were like, oh my goodness, please don't take those away. Please don't take those away. So we thought, okay, well, we'll dig in. We'll figure out a way to continue to bring you 5 mornings a week of content. I will tell you, after 10 months, whew, man, oh man. But you know what? There is always something to learn, and there's always something to push out and make sure that. And you know what? Our industry keeps us on our toes, so that's always fun as well. What do you have for us, Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that what I love about it is I get little golden nuggets here and there. Like this morning when you were talking about seller concessions with one of the partners that you bring in, it's an opportunity to get these little things that I haven't had a chance to see yet. And the other thing I love is the fact that about a day later, they'll show up as recorded. So if I did miss one, I'm able to go to the YouTube, maybe the next day, maybe the day after, and I can pick it up. So thank you for that. I think they're really worthwhile. I'm so glad. Yeah. We're excited to keep bringing those to you. So again, I do, if you haven't plugged into those, I do encourage you to plug in, because there's a lot of good stuff on that. And lastly, before we move off of Gary, Gary does talk about lead generation, and Eric very astutely said that lead generation and lead conversion are probably the 2 places we want to err on the side of spending more time rather than less. And he couldn't be more right about that, right? Regardless of what you call it, lead generation, you can call it client acquisition, you can call it business development, you can call it a whole bunch of different things, right? Depending on where you come from, right? Many of you come from a different industry into real estate. Regardless of where you come from and what you call it, it's all the same thing, right? We're all in the same business, and that business is not real estate. We're in the business as business owners of client acquisition. Every single day you get up, you should ask yourself the question, the first business question you should ask is, what am I listing today? What am I listing today? If you start your day off with what am I listing today, I promise you, after 90 days, you will be so programmed that when you start your business day, you're out searching for listings, that listings will start showing up. The struggle that I see is that too many of us wake up and either dive into emails or dive into texts or dive into
your current business, right? Nobody mentioned that as an aha, so I'll bring it up. One of the things that Gary outlined is you never let current business get in the way of finding new business. Now, for many of you, you're kind of thinking there must be some sort of weird internet delay, because I'm certain that he didn't just say, don't let current business get in the way of finding new business. I did, and I just repeated what Gary said. Why do you think that we're pushing to you that the idea of focusing on client acquisition takes precedent over any other business activity, including the business you're currently working on? Why do you think that is?
Keep the pipeline healthy.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because if you don't keep that pipeline healthy, you have the roller coaster ride of real estate income, right? You make money and then you're poor. You make money and then you're poor. You make money and then you're poor. And the reason it goes up and down like that is because if you're only working on current business and you're not filling the pipeline, you're not backfilling other clients, well, all that stuff closes, right? Whether it's 1 transaction or 10 transactions, all that stuff closes. And then you have all this time that you have to spend finding new business to sign and then start working on it again. And so you're in this trough of income. Right? So be really careful about that. Stay focused on continually building a client base. Now, that doesn't mean deliver poor customer service, right? What it means is stay focused on managing your time. Like I said, not all things matter equally. And so if you build yourself a schedule for client acquisition first, and then checking in with all of your current stuff second, and hold yourself to that. Here's one thing I want you to write down. There is no such thing as a real estate emergency. No such thing. Now, sometimes people want to push to you that there is such thing as a real estate emergency, right? To that, I might say, don't allow other people's emergencies to become your priorities. That is a bad business practice. Can anyone think of a real estate emergency that I'm not thinking about? Go ahead.
Yes. Well, the other day, I felt like I had an emergency because there are so few houses on the market, and I've got a couple that's been looking at properties, and there are so few of them available, so that one came on the market, and I felt like it was an emergency to get in touch with them and see if I could get them in there before it was gone, like had been taking place for them along the way. So to me, that was an emergency. Like I wanted to drop everything, do what I could to get them out there to see the property before it was gone.
Yeah, and what I would say to you is, I'm not sure if that qualifies as an emergency. I think it qualifies as paying close attention to what the market is bringing us and what the client's needs are. Now, that being said, if you were in the middle of lead generation, you wouldn't have known that property came on the market because you wouldn't have been out fiddling around on the MLS, right? You would have been having conversations with potential clients, right? So the idea of stopping what you were doing, if you were stopping something that wasn't really part of the hierarchy of dollar productive activities, you can stop that stuff, right? I don't think there's an emergency to get pulled off there. I see your point. I'm also trying to make a counterpoint, right? And so recognize, guys, that yes, sometimes the market does call for extreme.
Do you mind if I say one more thing?
Not at all.
That book that you recommended this morning's 9 o'clock meeting, there's somebody who was in our group that he said he has a full-time job and he has a full-time job traveling. That book, I couldn't put it down. I mean, I was listening to it. Actually, it was audio. So I just wherever I went, I was listening to it. But what I liked about it was it allowed me to see for the first time more than ever that it's really something you do all day long, no matter where it is you are. And he has so many opportunities in terms of the travel he does, that he can take these techniques and have a room full of clients.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
I found it very exciting, and it opened up a door opened up for me that I didn't I didn't know how to apply before, but now I see that it's really, I mean, all the things that have been said before, but in a way that I heard them differently.
I love that, Barbara. Thank you so much for saying that, because one of the things, you kind of beat me to the punch, right? It's called Exactly What to Say. The author is Phil Jones. And what I said this morning on the call was, I'm going to give you guys the week to get it, and then next week to read it. And then starting in the first week of February, before we hit family reunion, we're going to have 3, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday mastermind session about a third of this book. By the way, it is indeed part of the Ignite curriculum. Know why? Because as of this morning, I made it part of the Ignite curriculum. Because I so believe in what this guy wrote and how we can take it and use it the way Barbara just spoke about to really benefit in our own industry, which is why I want to take the time to make sure that we have opportunity to brainstorm with each other about how to use the magic words that Phil Jones talks about in here, specific to real estate. Dan and then Mari.
Yeah, I noticed that Catalina had put out a link in the chat, if people aren't looking at the chat, for a free version of that book in PDF. So you don't have to wait for it. And then there's also a real estate version, which I ordered on Amazon this morning. I just wanted to put that out there, make sure people are looking at the chat.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I didn't realize that there was a free PDF of the book someplace. Yeah, so search for that. There is also a real estate version. I purposely am not going to read the real estate version because I want to develop local scripts with you based on what Phil Jones says in Exactly What to Say, and then go to see what he says about real estate. Mostly because I don't believe he's a realtor, so I want to make sure that we're doing the work that needs to get done. Go ahead, Mara.
No, I just missed the author's name, but I think you just repeated it. So
yes, Phil Jones. Phil Jones. You're welcome. All righty. So crazy important stuff that Gary puts out for us. Recognize that some of the things that we go through together are not going to make all of you happy. There are going to be things that by the time we're done today that we're going to get to where you're going to say, oh, you know what, I don't want to do that. Well, I get it, right? And yet I want to bring up for a number of years, probably for 10 or 12 years, we brought a training and coaching program to the local area every single year, and that training program was called Bold. You will have an opportunity at some point in the future when we bring Bold back, once we're in a more normal setting. But one of the Bold laws that I want to make sure that we put on the table today is how you behave in here is how you behave everywhere. And what that means is, you know, sometimes as adult learners, we get caught up in the, you know, do I look good and am I right? And so if I'm not going to look good in this, or I'm not going to have the right answer to a question, I think I'll just kind of check out and not do the do. And what psychologists have learned over time is that how you behave in a setting like this, as you're attempting to learn something new and get better at it, is exactly how you'll behave once you're outside of a classroom setting. So if your choice is to kind of lean in and participate and practice the scripts and report your numbers and do all the stuff, well, then the second you step out of this, like at 6:01 tonight, you're going to want to continue behaving that way, engaging with your database, building a database, finding people to engage with, building a real estate career, practicing scripts, getting on purpose about stuff. If you choose to do the exact opposite in a setting like this, studies have shown that that's typically how you'll behave at 6:01, right? So I encourage you to lean into all of this, right? It's not required that you like it. It sometimes helps, and yet it's not required that you like it. It's not required that you like me. What is required is that you lean into the material so that you're getting information that will help feed your brain and feed your mind, which I guess is the same thing, feed your brain and feed your heart to really put you on a path of business success. Because even those of you who have owned your own business before, if you've never owned your own real estate business before, a lot of it's the same and some of it's different. And if you've owned a business before and you haven't owned a successful business, one of the things that I want you to take away from our time together is, what are the activities that have to be done to create a successful business? Because there's lots of people who own businesses. Not everybody owns a massively successful business, right? You notice how I squeaked the word massively in the second time? And so here's the last thing I want to say to you before we dive into some materials. I want you to recognize that, and I'm going to ask your permission on this. One of the things that I think is part of the responsibility that I have is not just bringing you information about how to run a real estate business, about how to grow a real estate business. If it's all right with you, I'd like to take that, start there, but then always follow up with, how do we take listings and sales, turn it into a business that then can be scalable, that will grow, that we can actually have a volume conversation around? How do we bring it from here to here? What if we have conversations that are about taking a listing and then start to have conversations about taking 10 and taking 20 and taking 50 listings? How do you do all of that? What if we set the stage for, yes, let's learn the basics of building a successful real estate business, and then figure out how to turn it into a massively successful real estate business, and then take those results and make sure that we're having conversations that revolve around wealth building. What are you doing with the money once you've actually started to earn it? Because see, I think that those conversations, that's what really makes us partners. What makes us partners is not just me saying, okay, here's how you list a house. Here's how you make a lead generation phone call. Here's how you convert an expired. Those are all pieces of knowledge that I can impart to you, that we can work together to help you hone. What I want to do is take that one step further and really, really start to have you flex the muscles of you gathering wisdom, right? Wisdom is you figuring out how to use the knowledge that you attain for the good of you and everybody else. So let's start here, but then take it. Is it okay? Again, I did say I was going to ask you permission. Is it okay to start small and then have conversations about scale, about taking things big, about what are we doing over and above just the real estate portion? How are we utilizing the money that we're making? Are we investing? What are we investing in? What kind of wealth building opportunities exist out there for us? Would that be all right if we kind of went there as well? Okay, I see a lot of people.
Hell yeah.
Heads. Okay, good. All right. I like the hell yes. That's even better. Bonus. Okay, good. So that's what we will do. So let's get our heads in the right spot and run through. We are on page 10 in your materials. On page 10 in your materials. And so I want to spend just a few minutes running through the 6 personal perspectives. And the 6 personal perspectives, something that Gary wrote to answer a very specific question. And the question he was attempting to answer when he wrote these were, okay, what is it that differentiates those people who achieve at the highest level from those who don't seem to accomplish quite as much? Would you agree that there are those tiers of people? That there are people who achieve at a really high level and there are people who achieve less? And so he was looking around to say, okay, well, something has to explain that. What explains that? And so these 6 personal perspectives were his attempt at explaining that. So let's run through that on page 10. Personal perspective number 1. Commit to self-mastery. Right? Donna mentioned this before. Commit to self-mastery. Anybody want to take a venture, take a guess at what that actually means? What does it mean to commit to self-mastery?
Discipline.
So having discipline, or being a person of discipline. Yeah, what else? Mara.
Believing in yourself and wanting to go for it. Just doing everything you can to get there.
Yeah, right. So continue to constantly looking to be the best version of yourself possible, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Eric.
Yeah, I was going to add to what Mara just said. Hi, Mara. It's know yourself, know your limits, know your capabilities, and work on where your limits fail to improve yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
And foremost, if I may, be very genuine versus other people.
Yeah, it's kind of looking in the mirror, right?
Should be part of our.
Yeah, it's kind of being brave enough to look in the mirror and saying, okay, here's what it is and here's what's not. Here's where I need to work, right? What else, Andy?
Decide that you're going to do something, and then decide in this case that you are going to. I don't decide you're going to commit. I would just say decide you're going to practice self-mastery. Just decide that you're going to get there, and even if you don't know the way, if your decision is firm, you can decide you're going to get there. You just decide, and you remind yourself of that decision every morning. You're committing to self-mastery. That will bring what's required to get there to you, because you've made that decision. That's what you're going to get to.
Nice. Donna.
To me, it's knowing something, committing to something, repeating something, practicing something so often and so deeply that it's virtually impossible for you to get it wrong.
Nice. Georgia.
I was going to say recognizing your weaknesses and like facing them head on. So this way you know what to work on, really.
Indeed. Kate.
I was just going to say, and knowing where you want to go, where you want to end up, what is your end point? What are you working towards? I think that's a part of it.
Excellent. Sheila.
It's doing the right habits over and over and over again until you master them. Like if you want to have a morning routine, you just have to keep doing it until you master it and things like that.
Excellent. So here's what I've learned in the last minute. Y'all don't need me. You got this, right? That's exactly right, right? So committing to self-mastery is ultimately making a decision to tame what's between your ears, right? You've got to be brave enough to look and see what's there currently. Know that there's always a way that you can improve. And again, making a decision to be the best version of yourself possible. And just taking those actions over and over and over again daily to get there. Personal perspective number 2, commit to the 80-20 principle. I'm certain that most of you have heard the 80-20 principle, right? The 80-20 rule, developed by an Italian philosopher by the name of Vilfredo Pareto. And I'm not making that up. His name really is Vilfredo Pareto. Right, and the 80-20 rule basically says that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your activities. Right, you may have heard that 80% of the business in our business gets done by 20% of the agents. Right, there's an 80-20 rule almost every place you look. And so in our world, the 80-20 rule is really crazy important because it gives us our marching orders every day. Would it be helpful to know what the 20% for a real estate agent is? Would it be helpful to know exactly what we need to be doing every single day to create the 80% that becomes our results? So write this down. Some of you know this. So if you know it, if you know what numbers 1 through 7 are, because there are 7 things that make up your 20% as a real estate professional. If you know what they are, just go ahead and unmute and I will call on you. Number 1, number 1's the easy one. What's number 1? Go ahead, Priscilla.
Lead generation.
You got it, lead generation. See, Priscilla's the smart one. She's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go for the easy one.
No, I'm the newbie.
Right? So lead generation is number 1. What's number 2?
Lead follow-up and conversion.
Yeah, lead follow-up and conversion. Absolutely. That's number 2. What's number 3?
Appointments.
So appointments, absolutely. Number 4?
I have it written down here, so I'm kind of
Yeah, clear. That's okay. You can cheat. Go ahead.
Negotiations and contracts.
Negotiations and contracts. Why don't you just keep going then? Give
I
us
wrote
number
10%
5.
next to that one. Closing 5%. I don't know why I wrote those percentages.
I'll tell you why in a minute.
Practice education role play 10%. 7 is money management 5% and other 10%.
All right. So let's run through this one more time. So you've got lead generation and lead conversion, number 1 and number 2, right? Number 3 is appointments. Number 4, contracts and negotiation. Number 5, closings. Number 6, by the way, this isn't in your book, so you do have to write it down. Number 6, education, practice, and role play. So you're kind of in number 6 right now. So the good news is you're in your 20 right now, right? You're focused inside of that 20% that matters to your success. And number 7, money management. Money management. So here's what I've learned. If you don't pay close attention to number 1 and 2, you never have to worry about number 7. Because you just don't have any money to manage if you're not paying attention to 1 and 2. So for my math nerds on the call with me, I just gave you 7 things that make up the 20% of a real estate professional. Just to prove to you that the 80-20 rule works always, what's 20% of 7 rounded? 2, right? 20% of 7 rounded up is going to be 2. What are the top 2 things that you need to focus on based on the top 7 things I just gave you? If there was a 20% of your 20%,
lead generation.
Lead generation and lead conversion, right? That's why they're numbers 1 and number 2. Now, let me give you a quick synopsis of, or a quick explanation of what the difference between lead generation and lead conversion is, right? Lead generation is finding people to communicate with. We're going to spend the rest of our week after tonight moving into source of business. And so we're going to start going through, okay, where do you find business and how do you find business in each of those sources, right? That's all the generation that comes in. You can advertise, you can market, you can host open houses, you can dial into your database, you can do a whole bunch of different things to find people to communicate with. I would offer to you that if you're on this call and you've been through Ignite at least once, you probably don't have, or if you're on this call and you're an experienced real estate agent for say more than a year, right? You probably don't have a lead generation issue in your business. My guess is that you likely have a lead conversion issue in your business because you have people, right? Even those of you who have been licensed for 12 minutes or so, you have people, right? Does everyone have one of these? Well, if you have one of these, you have people. Hey, let's do something fun. Go to your phones. Go to your phones and go to contacts. hit the Z, and then scroll all the way to the bottom. It'll tell you how many contacts you have in your phone. Go ahead and put that number in the chat. How many contacts do you have in your phone? Wow, so far I'm winning. I never win this game. Oh my goodness. Okay, forget it. Stop typing. Jerome wins. Hands down. He beat us all. Actually, I think he beat most of us. If you combine all of our contacts together, I don't think that we have as many as Jerome. All right, so where's Jerome? Jerome, unmute a second. Tell us why you have that many contacts in your phone.
20 years of leading global teams.
So there you go, right? So it's time on task over time, right? You've got so if you had to go to each of those 4,200 and something else, what was it? 4,205, 4,200 people. How many of those 4,200, if you called and said, "Hey, it's Jerome Mendel, how are you doing?" would say, "Wow, Jerome, hey, how are you?" How many of them would actually know who you are? I'm just curious. Maybe it's all of them, maybe it's not.
Close to 95 to 100%. I don't know exactly.
Wow. Okay. Well, so here's my thought. You've got a massive head start in creating opportunity for yourself in this business. Now, if a lot of those people are not necessarily local, right, that could maybe change some things. And yet, even non-local people, we'll talk about referral business as one of the sources of business as well. Right. So the reason I ask you to do that is because oftentimes when we're new to the business or relaunching our business or looking for a boost to our business, we look around and say, "Oh, everybody else seems to have all this business and I don't have any." Well, guess what? You just all proved to yourselves that regardless of how many people your number was, what was the smallest number? 70 something, right? 78, right up to 4,200. What if you were able to contact those 78 people, Georgia, in your phone and have a conversation about offering services? What if you were able to contact them every 90 days and ask for referrals? What if you were able to turn those 78 people by some of the activities we're going to talk with you through into 478 people and then have a communication system for 478 people that would communicate with them consistently every 90 days. Right? So I want you to take like a deep breath and say to yourself, "Wow, I can totally kill it in this business because I already have a database." Like, we can skip that part of this course. You don't have to build it. It's already in your phone. What you have to do is start communicating with it in a consistent manner and make it real estate related. And we're going to spend most of tomorrow helping you do that. Make sense? All right. There was somebody else who had like 3,000. Who was that? I didn't see that. Oh, that was Dan Raposo showing off. Good for you, Dan. That's awesome. It's good to show off when you can. All righty. Any questions on 80/20? All right, let's move to number 3. So personal perspective number 3, move from E to P. That has nothing to do with consuming vegetables. It's not E to P or eat your peas. It's moving from E to P, from an entrepreneurial style to a more purposeful style. Right? That entrepreneurial style is described as you kind of waking up in the morning and approaching your business from a doing what I do naturally, doing what comes simply or easily to you manner. And so what that means is if you're the type of person who gets up every morning and says, "You know what, I'm going to make sure that I'm on Facebook and I'm liking the people that I like stuff and commenting and kind of trying to connect with people on social media, and that comes easily to you, well, then you have an opportunity to not only continue to find business that way, but explore other opportunities that maybe don't give you the warm and fuzzies, right? So when I talk to some of you about calling expireds, right, an expired listing, some of you suddenly have someplace else to be. Because for some of you, calling expired, it's like you'd rather have your teeth pulled out with no Novocaine. And yet for others of you, you're like, calling expired, it's like, bring it on, man. Like, who cares? They don't even know me. But for some of you who are way okay doing the stranger thing, when I tell you, dive into your database and start having conversations with the people who do know you, you're like, oh my goodness, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to bother the people that know me, right? And so we're going to balance things out a little bit. Moving from E to P, success comes from that P. It comes from that purposeful spot when you start making decisions about what else you're going to do. When you start making decisions about being uncomfortable, that's where growth happens. Right? You heard me say this morning on the 9 a.m. call when I talked through those 12 things that successful people do. And one of them was learn how to live in discomfort, right? Don't stay stuck in a mode of comfort. I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I have decided to do in the last couple of years of my life is that even if I'm having one of those days where, you know, look, the reality is getting in front of a classroom or getting on a Zoom call and conducting a mastermind or running the 9 a.m. call or having a class with you guys, that is all something that over time has just become something I can kind of do in my sleep. Now, I don't do it in my sleep because I respect all of you way too much. And so I do take as much time as I need to prepare to make sure that our conversations are meaningful to you. And yet it's a comfort zone for me, right? This is not me being uncomfortable in front of you this evening. And so what I've decided to do every single day is I get into the office and I look at my calendar and I see what my day is going to be like. And I ask myself this question: where am I putting something that creates discomfort? If I look at a day like today where I had a 9 o'clock and a 10 o'clock and I had an 11 o'clock class and a 1 o'clock class and I had you guys at 4 o'clock and I had a bunch of stuff in between, someplace I had to find an opportunity for discomfort, right? To do something that pushes me out of my comfort zone to grow. And so I took that opportunity at about 3:15, about 3:20 or so this afternoon, where I made an outbound phone call to someone that I really needed to have a conversation with that I had been putting off. And so that was like that eat the frog moment where I thought, okay, that's a discomfort point for me. I need to do that, get it done. And so I can then move on to you guys with my conscience being clear. And I did it. But I look every single day for an opportunity to stretch and grow. Right? If you're at the gym, what do you know about working out? If you go to the gym every day, you do the same workout routine, you don't grow after a while. Right? You have to keep pushing your muscles. You have to keep pushing to make sure that there's something new and exciting that's well, I always think it's gross when you use the working out at the gym as an example, because muscles, you actually have to tear the muscle to have them grow. It's a little graphic. And yet, isn't your brain the same way? Are you pushing yourselves to make sure that you're not in a place of comfort all day long, every day? It doesn't mean you can't be there sometimes, but are you making sure that you're doing something every single day that stretches you? Donna got off the call because she had to jump on a different call at 5 o'clock tonight. But I will tell you that for those of you on the 9 a.m.s, what you know about me is that I struggle to read, right? It's not that I don't know how to read, but I struggle to read consistently. And it's something that I don't know why I struggle with it. I push it away. I don't want to do it. I don't find the time to do it. And yet it's something that is very important to me because I am not just a business owner and an instructor. I'm a real estate coach and I'm a business coach. I coach people privately. If I'm not growing myself, I'm not as much use to you and to my coaching clients. So it's really important that I dive into as many different books as possible to continue to fill my brain. And I struggle with it. So the one person I know that reads a ton is Donna Gilbert. So Donna became officially my reading coach, right? She tells me what she's reading. I tell her what I'm reading. I'm starting to report in kind of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. That is a level of discomfort for me, right? And yet I'm kind of forcing myself 30 minutes, 3 nights a week and an hour on the weekends to make sure I get my reading in. I got through this book in longer than it will take most of you. Some of you will sit down and get through this book in an hour and a half. Some of you maybe 45 minutes. It's a small book. It took me about 3 weeks to read this book, but I got through it, right? And so now I'm moving on to the next one and the next one and the next one. Donna said to me at some point, which I repeated to some of you last week, she said to me, because I told her I wanted to read Barack Obama's new book, and it's like 900 pages long and very small print with no pretty pictures. Not a good book for me. And yet, what she said to me was, you only have to read 1 page at a time. And so I want you to recognize that moving from E to P is the same thing for you. You don't have to go from your E to a more purposeful style of doing business overnight. And yet, I want you to start thinking about what purposeful activities you may start to do, even if they push you out of your comfort zone, such that over time, that purposefulness becomes your E, it becomes your commonplace, it becomes what you do naturally. Because that moment that you get to stand on top of that mountain and say, man, you know what? I never used to behave this way, and now I do, right? It's like starting to run. Like I run 4 to 5 days a week. I can remember the days where thinking about running a mile was like a torture. I had to work up to a mile. Right now I run 5 to 7 miles, 4 to 5 days a week. And that's simple. That's just, so being on top of that mountain, that's become my new E. My next challenge, if I was challenging myself in that arena, is what if my 5 mile days became my 7 mile days and my 7 mile days became 10 mile days, right? I'm not quite there yet. And yet that would be the next step in that evolution. So do you see how you can use this in each in each lane of your world? All right, number 4. Number 4, make being learning-based the foundation of your action plan. The very fact that you are all here tonight tells me that you are absolutely learning-based and that you're excited to kind of dive in and figure things out so that you can launch your career or relaunch your career and have the level of achievement that maybe has eluded you thus far. I can tell you that one of the things I have noticed by going to national events or regional events is that the people who are sitting at the front row in these events are the people who you would think would need the education the least, right? It's all the top people in our industry who are sitting right up front with their pen and their paper, listening to anything that gets said. Right? From that perspective, I'll take this moment in time to do a small commercial. If you have not raised your hand to sign up for Family Reunion, which is the 15th through the 18th of February, being held right in your living room. You didn't know it was being held in your living room, did you? It's being held in your living room. And the good news is you don't have to supply snacks to anyone but you. And what I mean by that is this is typically our annual convention that we travel to. We were supposed to this year be in Las Vegas, but of course, our Brady Bunch world has limited us to a digital version of this event. I cannot impress upon you enough that if you are a learning-based individual, you need to be at this event. It's 2.5 days of the top people in our industry giving you their tips and strategies about how they do what they do. It is not 2.5 days of Zoom, right? It's a specially designed platform that allows you to kind of pick and choose where you go. There's a networking area of it. It's a really cool platform that allows more than just a Zoom platform allows. And instead of costing $2,000 for you to travel across the country and go to this event, it costs $80 if you say yes tonight, because we're literally buying the tickets, the group tickets, tomorrow morning. So you've got one last opportunity to get them at $80. I think normally they're $119 or $129 or something like that. It is the best $80 you will absolutely spend. I get absolutely no benefit from you being there except knowing that you are being taken care of at a high level for 2.5 days, and will benefit from hearing from top people in our industry from across the country. So again, if you haven't raised your hand for that, send me an email. Somebody can put my email in the chat box, rick.scott@kw.com. Reply to me, say please order me a ticket. You'll be billed back in February, but go ahead and absolutely plug into that. If you've already said yes to me, know that your ticket's being purchased tonight into tomorrow morning, and you'll get the receipt on that if you've already said yes. So no need to tell me again, but if you haven't said yes, go ahead and make that adjustment, because you definitely want to be there. Personal perspective number 5, remove your limiting beliefs. Remove your limiting beliefs. Remove your limiting beliefs. Somebody tell me what that means.
Telling yourself that you can't do something, or you're not smart enough, or any limits on yourself.
Yeah, that sounds like my friend Margaret. Is that Margaret? Yes, it is. So it's lovely to see you. So the idea of limiting beliefs are exactly that. They're thoughts we have in our head in which we focus on the can't instead of the can. I'll give you a quick example. I will transparently tell you that when we opened our first office in Richfield in 2004, and then helped launch the Trumbull Market Center in Trumbull, and then the year later the Stamford Market Center, and then took the Stamford Market Center back over in 2009. It was a belief of mine that we weren't in Texas, right? So Keller Williams offices were always big outside of the Northeast. And it was my limiting belief that in the Northeast, our offices would never be as big as they were across the country. And because of that limiting belief, I kept hiring team leaders who would fulfill my vision of our offices. Not knowing I was doing that, but I was absolutely doing that. And what came from that was small offices. Until I had an awakening where some of our sister offices in New Jersey were kind of working on this system called the Growth Initiative. And it was all about activities, and it was all about focusing team leaders on a certain number of appointments every single day, week, and month, which is just a system, right? Similar to the system that we're going to help you create before we go tonight. Before we go tonight for your own business. And I started to see what was happening in New Jersey. All of a sudden, the agent count in New Jersey started to go up and up and up. And guess what happens in a world like ours, where you are a low volume, high margin, a low margin, high volume business concept, right? You guys, you contribute company dollar to help run the company, but only to a certain point. And then you cap and you earn 100% for the rest of your year. So in our world, if we're not big, it's hard to be as profitable as we could be because you each stop paying. That's the whole concept of low margin, high volume. And I started to watch it happen in New Jersey. And I got smart finally and said, you know what, well, why don't we do that here? And I had the wrong people in place. I had people in place who bought into my old vision of what our offices should be, which was small and boutique-y. And what we learned over time is that there's not power in small and boutique-y. And there's less profit, not just for me, but in a profit sharing organization like this, less profit for you and me in a smaller organization. And we got into business with people who understood the new vision and very quickly moved from 97 person offices to the 550 of you that exist today and growing, right? So be really careful about what you believe, because I believed it. I believed that small was what we were destined for here. I don't admit that to pretty much anybody else but my Ignite classes. And yet that is true, right? I'm a perfect example of someone who had that belief and then kind of got called out on it, changed the belief, and then started taking action to grow, to grow through that belief. Now, I'm certain I have other limiting beliefs now, right? But everybody does. So it's just a matter of being cognizant of them and looking past them. I like to ask myself the question, are you certain that that is true? Right? When I have a thought, I ask myself the question, are you certain that that's true? And then I look for evidence to disprove what I just thought about. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And yet be careful about what you think. If you think that contacting your database is you being a pest, that ultimately is a limiting belief that will limit your ability to be successful. Instead, if you embrace contacting your database as a service to the people that you have in your world, to make sure that not only if they require real estate service, that they don't in a weak moment hire a weak agent instead of somebody like you who could really rock their world, but expand that to make sure that it's not just real estate that you're talking with them about, but about community things and seasonal things. You see how that works? Be careful how you think about it. All right, lastly, personal perspective number 6. Be accountable. Hey, what's the opposite side of being accountable?
Not taking responsibility.
Yeah. It's being a victim. You got it, Barbara. Yep. Mara?
Yeah.
Indeed. Right. So you're either accountable or you're a victim. That's kind of the, I'm kind of a black and white kind of guy. So it looks to me like you're either accountable or a victim. And accountability ultimately means that you get to take 110% credit for all the great things in your world. You also get to take 110% responsibility for all the crappy things in your world, right? Because you brought all of them into your world, all the good stuff and all the less good stuff. It's all about you. And so when you take accountability for that, you get to then say, okay, well, if I'm accountable for bringing it all into my world, why am I going to focus on some of this crappy stuff? What if I just focused on the cool stuff? The victim looks at that and says, oh my goodness, it all happens to me. I'm not in control of anything. Everyone else has it better than me. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Can you tell I have not a whole lot of patience for that kind of mindset or mentality? Here's the problem with that victim mentality. First and foremost, as a coach, people who are victims or exhibit victim mentality are almost impossible to coach. They are nearly uncoachable. Because anytime you would ask a question around, talk to me about what you think you could do differently to have a different result, the answer is, well, I shouldn't have to do anything differently. I'm doing it all correctly. It's all these other people around me that have the problem. Right? It's like living in the world of, if they were different, I'd be better. Right? If I came to you and said, if you were all better students, I'd be a far better instructor. Instead of just taking accountability for saying, as the instructor of this course, I have to own what I bring to the table every night. I have to own it when it's good, and I have to own it when it's not. Right? My expectations for each of you, if you're interested in success as a business owner, is the same. That you just understand that you get to show up and take responsibility for it all, because you're the business owner. Remember, in real estate, most of you wear two hats in your business. You're the CEO of your business, and you're also its sole employee. And so you have to make decisions with two different hats on. We'll talk in a couple of days about what happens when you start to show up as the employee in a way that maybe the CEO doesn't love. Is the CEO you brave enough to kind of step up and step in and fire the employee you? Well, what does that look like? It's a fun sort of schizo conversation. And yet, some of us kind of need that shake, kind of need that, okay, you know what, maybe the CEO you has to look in the mirror and say, look, employee you, maybe you're not cut out for real estate. Are you willing to do X, Y, and Z? Are you willing to look at your 20% and do the activities that feed success? Because if you're not, I will tell you again transparently that there are some people I work with that I have to ask the question to. Wouldn't it be better for you to go and get a job as like a temp someplace, or work in fast food, or something that at least when you spend the time that some people spend in our industry, you at least get something as a return? I want to dispel a myth for you right now. It is untrue that this industry requires 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. That is untrue. That's a choice that many real estate agents choose to make. It is a myth that you have to be in business for 2 or 3 years before you can achieve any kind of success. It's a myth that it's going to take you at least 6 to 12 months to have your first closing. Those are all decisions you get to make. And when you start with making decisions that are accountable, right, to the activities, accountable to how you grow a business, so much of that starts to show up. And here's what's cool. When you make those decisions by being accountable and decide not to be a victim to the market or to your competition or to anybody else, and just be accountable to the activities that we set you up on, when you do that, success starts to show up, which then builds confidence. And when confidence starts to show up, when confidence marries the skill that you're developing, that's the rocket ship ride. However, you don't get to develop the confidence without actually doing without doing the activities and creating the results. Does that make sense? Does it sound like I'm preaching a little? Sorry about that. However, it's really important to me that you understand that your success has everything to do with what you choose it to be. It has nothing to do with what you know or don't know in real estate. It has nothing to do with the size of your database, the numbers you put in the chat room. It has nothing to do with that. Because here's what's true. If Georgia takes action with her 78 people and Jerome takes no action with his 4,200, guess who achieves success in real estate faster? Now, I'm certain that won't happen, Jerome. I'm certain of it. And yet, it was a good example, right? So choose accountability. Choose how your business is going to grow. Choose what your results are going to be. And then just follow up with the activities that get you there. Is it always as easy as just doing that? Well, yes, the answer is yes. That doesn't mean there aren't distractions and issues that pop up, right? That may pull you away from that path. And yet it truly is that easy. Where do I want to go? What activities do I need to do to get there? Am I willing to do the activities? 1, 2, 3, boom. Then you just do them over and over and over and over and over again. All righty, what time is it? It is 5:38. So we're gonna go through 2 more things tonight. How are we doing so far? Anybody running for the door yet? I hope not. My intent is not to freak anybody out. My intent is to inspire you to recognize that your success is yours alone. It doesn't matter what you know or what you don't know about this industry. Trust me when I tell you, there are a ton of people out there making a ton of money in real estate who are less skilled than you are right now. And that goes for every single person on this call, even if you've been in the business for 15 minutes. Because you have more common sense than perhaps some of your colleagues. Now, that is not me crapping on the industry. It kind of sounded like that, I know, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is, did you ever do a deal with somebody? Those of you with some experience, did you ever do a transaction with somebody and you finish the transaction and think to yourself, how on earth is that person in business? How on earth do they make more money than I do? They're terrible at what they do. It happens, and it happens all the time. The answer is they are focused on activities that you're not focused on. It's not because they're lucky. It's not because they've been doing it longer. It's not because they know more people. It's not for any of those reasons. It's because they're focused on activities that are different than your activities. That's why they have a level of success that maybe you don't. It truly is as simple as that. I've watched it happen over and over and over again. I've coached people through it over and over and over again. So we're going to talk about 2 things more this evening. The first is your big why. That's on page 19 in your materials. By the way, for those of you who really like to go through the materials page by page by page, I'm going to drive you a little bit crazy because we're going to bounce. So I'm sorry about that, but you'll keep up. So page 19 through 22 is going to be some homework for you. 19 through 22 talks about your big why. And ultimately, your big why, anybody want to give me an idea of what they think the big why reference is? What are we talking about when we talk about the big why?
Motivation.
Yeah, so kind of motivation, what gets you up in the morning? What drives you forward, especially when you don't want to? Anybody have I don't want to day?
Every day.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? And we can have I don't want to days about so many different things. You can have an I don't want a business day. You can have an I don't want to go to the gym day. I don't want to do my running day, right? I don't want to stick to my diet day. So many different things that you can just choose not to do. And here's one thing I can warn you about. You've chosen an industry where you don't have a boss, right? I just told you who your boss was. It's when you wear the CEO hat. You're accountable to you for all intents and purposes. And my experience of human beings is that most human beings are terrible at being accountable to themselves. Terrible. We give ourselves passes left and right. Left and right. Well, if I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and it's raining. Now, raining has nothing to do with the thing that you were going to do or not do. And yet, because it's raining, you give yourself another pass, another day. Right? So your big why has to be something. You need to find something that helps pull you through when you have an I don't want a day. What is bigger than all of that? And my experience in coaching people financially is that if your big why is to make money to pay your bills, you need to find something else. That is not an appealing or attractive why for you. It's when you wake up in the morning to think, oh, I get to work today because I have to pay the mortgage. There's nothing exciting about that, right? Now, I personally enjoy paying my mortgage because I'm a big net worth tracker, right? And so I know that every time I pay my mortgages down each month, my net worth goes up. It took me a long time to figure that out. And yet, it's what excites me about making mortgage payments, right? Because every single time I make that mortgage payment, my net worth goes up. Do you ever think about it that way? Change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, right? We're going to talk about net worth tracking probably next week a little bit. However, I've also experienced people sitting in front of me crying like crazy. And when asked what was upsetting them, giving me the answer of, I don't have any money to pay any of my bills. Okay, great. So from a business perspective, let's review your activities. What is it you're doing? What are you focused on to create income? And they're not doing any of the things that actually lead to income, which says to me that your big why being that you have to pay your bills isn't a good enough big why, because I've watched people sit in front of me say, I don't want to do any of those activities, and I'm not doing any of those activities, and yet I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent this week. I don't know how I'm going to keep the lights on. I don't know how I'm going to make a tuition payment for my child. I don't know, you tell me. So what if it was something different? What if it was something bigger? Your homework between now and Thursday, I'll give you the 48 hours, right? Between now and Thursday is to think that through and answer some of those questions on 19 through 22 in your, or 21, whatever I said, in your materials. And be prepared when you come back. I'd like a couple of you to kind of share with us what you've determined your big why is. Like what do you get up to do? Mine's changed a lot. I used to think that it had to be about someone else. I used to think it used to have to be like if it wasn't about my kids, I was somehow a bad parent. I can tell you right now, my big why for at least the next couple of years of my life has little to do with my kids. It's kind of the kids are on the tail end of it, but it has everything to do with me. It is a selfish big why. And it has to do with creating a world where I can show up or not every day and still live my life and still have the income that I desire. It's setting things up so that I have investments and businesses that start to run without me if I choose not to be there. It's setting up a world where I can travel. Remember travel? So whenever we can travel again, by golly, it's going to be this summer, or at least this fall. Or I may you may not have me at all, because I think if I don't get out of here pretty soon, it's going to be like, Rah! I lost my train of thought. But the idea of setting up a world where I can travel for 6 months at a time and coach and zoom in and still work with you guys, with my coaching clients, but don't have to actually be here to do it. Would have been nice if I would have had that set up for now, because I could have been doing this for the last 10 months from someplace else. I didn't have to come to the Ridgefield Market Center training room every day. Right? But my big why right now has everything to do with creating my own path towards freedom. And then the tail end of that, the investment property side of that, has everything to do with leaving a legacy for my children. The growing the businesses has everything to do with leaving a legacy for my grandchildren, my unborn grandchildren. Right? So there's it's about other people kind of later. But for right now, my big why, the reason I get up and want to be good for you and make sure that you're successful is because it feeds back to me and creates success for myself so that I can start having the things that I want and designing the life that I want to have, which doesn't include not working. It just includes working maybe from someplace else so that I can continue to travel the world and fulfill my dreams on that side. What is it for you, right? My only point in telling you that story is that it doesn't have to be like a Mother Teresa type big why. You don't have to want to save the whales, save the planet, save anyone. You can just be about saving yourself and bringing what you want to your world. So think through that. If you want more on that, page 77 in the MREA book. Hey, here's a question. How many of you have read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent? Just by a quick show of hands. Okay, that is not enough of you. So here's your other homework. Between now and the time we finish our time together, which is 4 weeks from tonight, you need to have finished that book. Because it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about here. The reality of the MREA is, I can remember when this was first released, I'd been in real estate probably 3 or 4 years. I had built a successful solo business. I had opened my sales team, and we were just starting to think about opening the first KW office. And I got the book and I thought to myself, you're kidding me. Somebody wrote like a manual on how to do this. I just spent the last 4 years trying to figure it out on my own. Somebody wrote a manual. So guys, if you're new to the business, or if you're not new to the business and you want to relaunch, just read the manual because it's all in there. You wouldn't go to a furniture store and have furniture delivered that you had to put together and just wing it, right? I hope the answer is no. I'm a directions guy. So you got to read the directions, then you got to lay out all the parts, then you got to kind of run through one time in your mind, then start putting things together, right? That's following the manual. So just follow the manual. So again, homework piece number 2, due in 4 weeks. Make sure that you've been through the entire MREA. Homework piece number 1, make certain that you are working on your big why. All right, turn if you would in our last 10 minutes to page 23. Page 23. And since we ticked out of time, we will do this first thing on Wednesday, tomorrow, when we meet again. For those of you who have been to Ignite previously, yes, this time we are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I decided to do things a little bit different this time. We typically go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so we have a day in between. This time we're going to kind of heavy up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but that then gives you from Thursday night all the way through Tuesday night to actually do, right? I know sometimes getting stuff done in less than 24 hours, it becomes a struggle. So write down that homework and then recognize that oftentimes I will give you the 2 days to do it. And yet anything that doesn't get done by the time we're done on Thursday, you have all that time to go and create appointments, right? So let me ask you this question. How much money do you want to make? Because our next little piece is about you setting your targets based on the income you desire. Now, sometimes when I ask that question, the question I get asked back is, well, what's reasonable for me to expect? I don't think that's the right question to ask. I think the question you need to ask yourself is, what do I desire from my license? You worked hard to get a license, right? Some of you have had your license for a year or 2 or 3, and you work hard at what you do. Have you earned the level of income that you desire from your license? If the answer is yes, how did you do it? And are you interested in repeating it? If you haven't yet earned what you desire from your license, like just look back. What was the last 12 months? What was last year for you? You need to determine what that is. And part of that has everything to do with that big why. What are you funding? What does your financial thermostat say? When I work with a new coaching client, I'll ask this question, and they'll give me an answer. Well, I'd like to make $100,000. Okay, do you want to earn $100,000 or do you want to put $100,000 in your pocket? Well, I want to put $100,000 in my pocket. Okay, well, then you have to gross up a couple of things, right? Because minimally, you have to pay the market center and you have to pay taxes. Right? So now you're probably interested in earning $150,000 to be able to put $100,000 in your pocket. The second thing I'll ask is, okay, so if you don't put $100,000 in your pocket, would 90 be okay? And I cannot tell you how many times I ask that question where the answer comes back as, well, yeah, I guess, 90 would be okay. Okay, great. So if 90 is okay, what about 80? Well, 80 is less appealing, and yet, I could still live on 80. Okay, great. So if your goal is 100, but 90 would be okay, and you can still live on 80, what about 70? And I just keep going down until someone finally says, oh, no, whoa, like 45? No, I don't think so. Guess what? That's where your financial thermostat is set. That could be causing, remember we talked about limiting beliefs? That could be causing a dangerous limiting belief that is not allowing you to earn at the level that you truly desire to earn at, because you've already convinced yourself that something less than that is acceptable. You've already given yourself your first pass, and it's a pass on your income. Oh my goodness, I cannot think of something more horrible. Don't give yourself a pass on your income. You see my point? So what we're going to do first thing, let me say this about something real quick. Not everything I say is going to make you smile. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with risking not being the guy that you love all the time, as long as it assists you in thinking differently so that you begin to behave differently so that your results start to show up the way you want them to. Sometimes I'll say things that maybe rub you the wrong way. I apologize up front for that. Understand that I say the things that I say in the way that I say them, A, to make points, but B, because I care about what you care about. If you state that you want to put $100,000 in your pocket, well, that means something to me. And sometimes it means more to me than it does to you, at least at this moment. And so if I start to challenge you on something, or if I ask you to kind of do something that you don't want to do, oh my goodness, he's going to make us call expireds. Well, here's what's real. I'm not your father. I can't make you do anything, right? I can certainly encourage you to do the activities that we know create success. But my point is, if I challenge you on something, it's because at that moment, I may just be taking a stand for income that you're not willing to take a stand for yet. I want you to know where it comes from. Right? Because remember what I said, I can watch all 40 boxes at once. And so I know when I say something And a couple of you are like, oh my goodness, like, is this guy for real? Or sometimes you just put your head down, or sometimes there's a small head shake or a head tilt, right? I think I can read you all pretty well. I get it. I get it. I don't want you to think that for some reason that's not all a part of this course, because challenging you to think differently and think bigger is absolutely a part of this course. I expect it from my own coaches and from my own instructors. I would ask you to expect it of me, because it's how we all help each other to grow, right? I help you to grow, you help me to grow. Mutual, back and forth. And so when we get back together tomorrow at 4 o'clock and we start to have a conversation around money, I want us to have a transparent conversation around money. I want you to understand that the choices you make tomorrow will help you to create the business plan that will create the result that you decide on. However, I want you to think overnight about what that number really is. And I want you to really understand that concept of the financial thermostat that I just outlined for you. Is it 100,000 or bust? Or is 90 just as okay? Because if 90 is just as okay, you might as well make the goal 90. Don't torture yourself about 100 if 90 is just going to be fine. And I want you to ask yourself that question. Keep writing it down. Like, okay, well, is 70 okay? Is 60 okay? Is 50 okay? Is 40 okay? At some point, you'll get to a number that kind of makes you nauseous. Just be careful that your thermostat does not remain there. You have to be able to turn your thermostat up a little bit. Remember what I said, it's a myth that it takes a long time to make money in this industry. That's a choice that you will make, and I will help you make the right choices to move that along faster when we get back again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel, 4 o'clock tomorrow. I will see you here. Guys, it was my pleasure to spend time with you. I'll see you again tomorrow. I hope this was helpful. Good night.
Very quickly,
Thank you. Good night.
really fast before you leave. Sorry.
Yes.
So I missed the first 10 minutes of this call, so I didn't get a chance to